Now you're in your head too much.
Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, before we get started, we have a few announcements. An update for the conference. We've had a lineup change. Unfortunately, Dan Cooper can no longer make it due to a scheduling conflict. So fortunately for us, James Rink has stepped up and he is taking his spot, and he is going to be doing his SSP 101 presentation. If you guys saw his SSP 101 video on his YouTube channel, it was 4 hours long. It was fantastic. He's going to be doing a condensed version of that, trying to squeeze it into 2 hours, and he'll be bringing it to us live. We're really excited about that. What else? Lodging is sold out on site, unfortunately, but there are plenty of conference tickets available. There's hotels, Airbnbs, and camping all available still nearby if you want to make it to the conference. We've created a Telegram group for those looking to share rooms. If you guys are looking for a roommate or even sharing travel accommodations, there are people who are staying on site who have an extra room and they want to split the cost. Join the Telegram group. That link is below. You guys can coordinate there and hopefully save yourself some money, and you'll be able to stay on site, which will be great. Hopewell Farm CBD, they will be a vendor at the conference, and they just let me know today that they're going to be running a 420 sale during the conference, meaning all their merchandise is going to be 20% off. So stay tuned for that. That sale is actually going to start a few days before the conference starts if you want to order something online. Mark, I know you're a Hopewell Farm customer and you love their products. How's that working out for you?
Oh, good. I got off of 14 years on Xanax with Hopewell Farms and THC nice. Delta 8, which they don't carry that, but they between the two of them, they calm your heart down. So I was able to get to sleep at night.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. Nice. Yeah, I love their CBD. I've been using it for quite since we've been affiliated with them. So is Aaron, and it's some of the best stuff out there. And I'm not just saying that. And if you do want to get it now, you don't want to wait for the conference, you can get 10% off all their products with promo code Journey to Truth 10, and that link is below. Also, Omnia Radiation Balancer, we're going to try and have some Omnia merchandise at the conference. Also, if you guys want to test out the patches and the pendants, I'm in talks with Tim right now. Hopefully we can get some stuff shipped out on time, and we'll actually have some of that available also. So we're excited about that. Live stream tickets are available if you can't make it. All that information is available on the website, secretspaceconference.info. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, tonight we are joined by the lovely Suzanne Spooner and Mark Domizio. We've had both of them on the show before. They're returning guests. Mark was episode 129. Suzanne was episode 143. If you guys are interested in checking those out, both fantastic episodes. Mark's episode was the first time he's ever came public, sharing his testimony. Is a very powerful episode. But tonight we're joined by both of them, and Suzanne has been helping Mark recover his memories through QHHT. So it's a really interesting dynamic here, and we're going to get into what it's been like for them to work together and see what stuff has come up and where it's taken them. And there's a lot of stuff. We're going to get into all kinds of stuff today. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let us know. So obviously, this has been a journey for both of you guys. Over how long have you guys been working together now?
Oh gosh, how long has it been, Mark? My God,
it's about 6 years, I think. Maybe gone a little bit more. Yeah, I think it's 6 years in December. That'll be
wow. And I'm sure you guys already know, listening, Mark and Suzanne are both speaking at the conference, and they're going to be doing a presentation together, actually. And we're going to get a sneak peek of what they're going to be talking about, but they're not going to give away too much. So yeah, you guys have been working together for 6 years. That's a long time. What has that journey looked like? Whoever wants to take the wheel on this one.
Go ahead, Suze. You can go first.
Okay. Well, when Mark first reached out to me, it was, everybody that wants a session has a story of what got them to the point of wanting to dive into their deep consciousness to find answers or healing for themselves. And Mark, he just really struck me as somebody just so incredibly genuine, very confused about what had happened in his life, wanted answers. And that's what I do. I help people find their answers, and we all can do it. It's not hard to do, but his story, the very first session we did, it was a mind blower for me. I had to, I never know where they're going to go, and I don't know, what they're going to experience. So I'm kind of riding by the seat of my pants through every session. But with Mark, it really opened my mind up to these things that are happening around the planet. And I'd had clients that had felt like they had had similar situations, but Mark's was so tangible. And it was just such an honor to help him uncover these things that were important for him. And I thought after the first one, he'd had enough of me, and the whole situation was a lot to uncover and unpack. But, he did something that I think is really significant. He worked with the information that he gave himself to understand more deeply. And as time went on, he was ready to unpack some more and explore his amazing memories.
I think what's important about that is, everybody right now it seems like tons of people are having stuff surface and they're looking for answers and they're trying to find help. And I think it's really special what you guys have had, because it's not, we're always looking all over the place, having a session with this person, but to work with one person the whole time and really unpack this stuff, it's very unique. And I think your story is going to help a lot of people. And so how has this looked for you, Mark, as far as, just working with one individual, trying to uncover all this stuff?
Well, I don't think I could have worked with anybody else. It was after the first session, it would have been too strange to go to somebody new. And it's really personal information that comes out. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't think I was going to go back for a second session, but the first session, you have to remember, I actually had that information for years. It wasn't like I just got it a year before or a week before. I had been trying to, not think about it, through drugs and alcohol for decades. So I got just a little piece on the first one. In fact, I think my high self basically just said, yes, it did happen. And, the reason I went for the first one, I haven't really discussed it a lot. It has to do with a reptilian I saw. That was the real push for the first one, because I was having nightmares. I couldn't see who it was or what it was, and that's what it turned out to be, the reptilian. So once I got verification that I wasn't crazy and it happened for my high self, it was like, okay, that was good enough for me. I was like, and you're supposed to listen to, well, my high self said, listen to this recording like once a week, and get the healing part, because there's a healing part to the QHHT, where you get physical and spiritual from your high self. So I listened to that first recording one time, and it was too emotional for me. So I never listened to it again. And then, 2 years later, stuff started getting so bad, and I was so suicidal that I went back for the second session. And it was so much personal stuff came out, that I shared with Suze. It's like, stuff my wife, nobody else knew about in the world.
Oh, wow.
It's, because it's stuff comes out about being in solitary and being raped and all that. She heard all that stuff way before my wife did. So I never talked about it. And I went into a little detail, but the two big things that always bothered me was that reptilian and the guy that died in the cell with me. I felt guilty about him. So the first and second were actually for that reason, because those things were bothering me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, understandably. And you're right. There's a lot of personal stuff that comes out of these sessions, and you don't expect it most of the time. And
Yeah.
when you get it, it's when you get this information, it's like you almost want to guard it with your life. You don't want anybody to know about it. It's kind of scary. You don't even know if you believe it. You're still processing it. And I can totally understand why you would keep going back to one person. And do you have many returning customers, Suzanne, or is Mark one of the few?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
No, there's most people will just come once for a session. That's normal. There are several that I've worked with many times, a few times, for different reasons. And I say, if you want to come back and play in my sandbox again, we can do this, and it's amazing because they're given in that first session what they can handle, the part of them that knows everything we call, subconscious high self, whatever that name is, gives them exactly what they need at that moment to help them to understand what's happened in their life. And as they peel those layers of the onion, through time, sometimes they feel like, okay, I think I'm ready for more. And, then we can absolutely do that. It's pretty interesting how those sessions that are multiple unpack and deeper each time.
Exactly. And that's one of the key things. You get deeper and deeper each time. And that's actually how you've come to the realization, Mark, that there's screen memories, because sometimes in the early sessions, you're only getting to a screen memory, but through more sessions, you're getting deeper and you're realizing that it was just that, a screen memory. That's not actually what happened. What actually happened was buried beneath that. But if you go for one session or you just, explore it a little bit and stop, you may get to a false truth, and you're not going to get the real healing that you need by doing that. And that's why this stuff it's nothing to mess around with. And and because there's real.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. What are your thoughts on getting through those screen memories?
It's interesting you say that, because the only screen memory I know I'm positive of is, and the reason I never figured it out is because I didn't listen to that first recording. But in the first recording, I was in training and I'm on a bus and I look out the window and we're spaced out about 5 seats apart sitting on this bus. And in my memory, I have a jacket on, and I look over and there's like mountains. It looks a lot like areas of New Mexico I've seen. That's what I saw in my mind. But I never listened to the recording because what my high self is describing is not what I'm seeing in my mind at all. He was describing, my high self said, it's a drab city and there was sand around there. So it wasn't even the same description. There was no mountains. I think they gave me that screen memory so I would always be confused as to location, as to where it happened. And interesting thing about the screen memory is I didn't figure that out till last year, because I just started listening to that recording again. But I had a session with Peter Maxwell Slattery, and screen memories, if you have a psychic or somebody's reading your mind, they'll pick up that screen memory as a real memory. He picked that up. He thought I was in Sandia, New Mexico, from that screen memory, because that's what the screen memory was. But so it's just an interesting thing. It's part of it. It acts like a real memory in your head.
Right. And then I guess that's the interesting part about this is figuring that out. So you really have to be in tune with yourself to feel into that information, whether it's truthful or not, to even determine that it's a screen memory. And Suzanne, how was this process working with him? Because was this surprising you as well? Whenever he would so information would come through and then you would think this happened to Mark. And then the next time you'd be like, no, this didn't happen. This actually happened. Was that surprising to you as well?
Yeah, it definitely was. It's like you just think you understand the storyline, and then it's a whole different
Plot
story.
twist.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like he's on first, he's on third. And Mark is just, he is so open to his story that, it was helpful for me when Mark would say, I thought it was this, but I think it's actually that, which gave me, okay, so we've got two parallels going on here, and we can focus on either one, see what we can get from each of them, because I always say, with anybody, the answer may be what you think it is, and it may not be at all, and it might be in between. And that's what we're going to find today. So, leave yourself wide open to all these different possibilities. And so Mark his story is so multi-layered and not ever changing, but ever deeper from where we began. But I think we needed to begin where we did in order to grasp the enormity of his experience.
Right. You have to wonder on some level, those screen memories might actually be helpful for you. Maybe like your higher self even set that up somehow, because if you were to get straight to the bottom of the traumatic stuff right off the bat, it might not help be beneficial to anybody. So that screen memory, as much as it sucks that it's there and it could confuse you and fool you, it's also kind of like, it's like softening the blow a little bit. So you're just, you're easing into the reality of what possibly happened. So it's really interesting to think about that.
Yeah, you're right there, because if I would have found out right from the start, I was in a dumb in Diego Garcia, I don't think I could have handled that. But, Sandia was much more acceptable. I kind of knew stuff about New Mexico, so it wasn't that shocking to me.
Right. Yeah. So the Sandia memory turned out to be just totally false.
Total false.
Okay. You were never in that area.
Yeah. All of my memories in sand training, because in the beginning I was trained on the surface, and it was all sand and a little course they had us on. That memory, I always thought, well, that lines up with Sandia, it could be out in the desert there. So it did line up, and I accepted it for a long time until a little over a year ago, I had a session with Rebecca Rose because I wanted to find out the location of where all this happened. And I was already hearing about Mars, that I had been there. So I had a session with her, and she opened up my Akashic records, and that's where we went right away. It went Diego Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally made sense,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many testimonies have bits and pieces or time spent at Diego Garcia. So it seems to be a hot spot, I guess, or a jump point for people coming on and off planet for programs. Diego Garcia, for those who don't know, it's an island in the Indian Ocean, correct, Mark? And it is an active military base that you can find on the map. That's no surprise. But
that's public.
That's public, yeah. But there is an underground aspect to it, a dumb, and it goes for levels. How many layers did you say you think it was, Mark?
I don't know, but it would go down to the dumb. Then you had underneath that, you had that tunnel city. Then below that, you had the prisons and the experimentation labs. So,
right, yeah, it gets pretty deep. Sorry, I want to apologize, guys, if you guys are hearing a glitch on my microphone. I don't know what I can do about that, but just bear with us, please. So an interesting concept, Mark, you brought up, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Suzanne, is the idea of contracts and agreements and breaking those contracts. And sometimes it doesn't seem like we're successful. Like you want to do it, but you can't. And my theory is that maybe you just haven't found the right recipe. Like, I feel like, because what I've noticed in having so many sessions with so many different people, you try and address an issue with certain people, it doesn't come through. And then you get to that one person that seems to have the key for exactly what you need to break that contract or heal or break whatever it is, whatever it is in particular that you're trying to work on. It seems like there's always one person out there for that. So what are your experiences like, Suzanne, whenever you're doing sessions with people, how many times does the idea of a contract come up?
Well, that is, it's everybody brings their own questions to their sessions, and it does come up. It's usually along the lines of lessons that they have to learn, and the contracts are there to supply those lessons. And so sometimes between me and their high self or subconscious, we get into this really great conversation about, have the lessons been learned? Do they have all the information that they need? Is it serving them anymore? And oftentimes after that explanation, that part of them that knows everything will say, no, we don't need to have it anymore. We're good. And it will just, clear it away. There's no big show about how you end that contract. It's a decision. And then, for the client, they always have free will. So either they're going to believe that and make that the reality, or they'll doubt it and they can bring it back together again. So, it's many layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are your feelings about that, Mark? And then the contracts, I know you mentioned, you've had some difficulty trying to break some of those contracts, or end them, I should say. What does that look like for you?
Well, it's not that type of soul contract. What I found out was in the beginning, when I was in Diego, I had seen this reptilian, and I had always known that I got tortured for a couple of days and got questioned about that. But lately, I've remembered through meditation with my high self that I also got tortured by that reptilian. So what he did was strangle me, put both his hands around my neck until I passed out. And then when I would wake up, he would keep doing that. And then he started hitting me with he didn't torture me physically. He just sent experiences through his mind, whole experiences, and hit me with that whole experience until I finally said, I had enough. And when I had enough, I made an agreement with these reptilians. So I just found that out. Besides that, I have 2 other altars that are in with 2 different negative Nordic groups. So I have a contract with each one of them, those altars though. So, how many hundreds of times through meditation I have done, the clearing and break all contracts, agreements, all that. It's done. So I was amazed to find out that it has done absolutely nothing, that those contracts were still in place. And for whatever reason, it doesn't have any effect on those types of contracts. So what you have to do for those is you just have to go in and do some work. You didn't give consent for them. So you have to go in and, cut the contracts yourself.
Right. This is huge information, I think, because a lot of people are trying to do that. Because and there's all different types of contracts. Some come from past lives, there's soul agreements, right. Different stuff that, alter contracts is an entirely different, that's over here, it's an entirely different area.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting because I think a lot of people are looking to do that. And like you say, you can just do the meditations and you're not really taking care of anything. There's more involved sometimes. And I wonder if sometimes that contract is actually crucial, is important to your path. Maybe it might not seem like it, but there might be a lesson in it for you, or there's some growing or healing that needs to take place. And it wouldn't be able to happen unless you were in that contract. I don't know if maybe they're all meant to be broken is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think they are. They're all going to be broken.
Okay.
What it's going to do for me, you're right. It's going to help me to develop the skill to break that and to figure that out. And then maybe I can pass that on to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
so if you figure that out,
it's a definite thing. It can be done. I mean, it's just takes work. Seriously, you have to meditate. If you have guides, help your guides. But I'm finding out that this stuff really is done. You really need to do this with your high self.
Mm-hmm. And so, okay, this is an interesting thing, Suzanne. So your sessions, how often are you working with the client's high self? Is this
every session?
Every session. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that like the whole session, or is this like you go into different lifetimes and then the high self comes in at the end?
Typically what happens is once we start the hypnosis portion of the session, that part of them that knows everything, the high self, is going to go through the Rolodex of all their lifetimes and experiences and pick the one or two or more that's most important for them to see. So we'll go explore those because those have really important lessons to understand about themselves and how it ties into this current life. So usually 1 to 2 they'll visit. And that could be an abstract life of something like nothingness, energy. It can be in a physical body, male or female. It's whatever that part of them picks. And then from that time, when we're done looking at those, and we'll just make this nice, easy transition over to the high self. It's not hard. It's super, super easy. And that's where we get the information of why they showed them those lifetimes. They start scanning the body and healing the issues. We find the root reasons behind all of the physical issues, which are always emotional, spiritual. It's everything. The physical is just a message that's coming through from the experiences that they've had in their life. And then the client had come into a session with a list of questions they want to have answers. So we start in on that list and oftentimes go off in different segues depending on what that part of them wants to explain to us. It can get to be very broad and very high level information. Sometimes it's really, more down to earth type information, but you never know what a person is going to tap into until you give them the session.
I like what you said. What manifests in the physical is like a message or a result from the emotional, the energetics of it, or even the altar. And a lot of times this is where a lot of physical ailments come from that the doctors just can't do anything about it except throw pills at you. Because there's an energetic layer there. There's an energetic healing that has to occur. And whenever you keep suppressing it, it finds a place in the body to reside. And then before you know it, you have a tumor or you have, some heart problems. What, Aaron?
You're not healing the root cause. So it's going to keep manifesting. Like you said, you could heal one manifestation and it's just going to change the manifestation over and over until you heal the actual cause of it. And that's energetic.
Right.
That's very true. Yeah.
Right. And the root cause is, something we're all looking for. And some people don't, some people aren't. Some people are just okay with masking it and, living in la la land,
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the healing process, Mark and Suzanne. This is a healing journey for all of us. But as we unpack this stuff and uncover it, as emotionally taxing as it is, you find sometimes that there's physical relief in a lot of areas of your life. So what has that looked like for both of you guys? Whoever wants to take it first. Mark.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, physically, let's just go from last year when I first did my first interview with you. As I've worked through the trauma, I found that actually you're always looking for that little key, that fix all. I'll tell you what it is: forgiveness. That's been the way I've gotten through it all. Some people don't have to go into detail, but I seem to relive the horrible trauma. Like when I starved to death, I went through a couple of weeks of just reliving that, in detail. And then you get done that, you forgive the people that are involved, and it just goes away, and you finally get rid of that. So I just been taking that step at a time. So if you really want to look at it, that is the way to get through any of the trauma. You can't just ignore it. You have to look at it in detail. You have to have respect for what happened to you. You can't just ignore it. So you have to remember it, embrace it, You didn't do it to yourself. You just, and you forgive those that were involved. And as soon as you do, that's released, and all that energy, all that power they had over you, and all those memories just seem to go.
Wow. That's a powerful message. That's so true. And another layer to that is forgiving yourself. And it doesn't, and this is for anything in life. Like sometimes we beat ourselves up over things, and we can't, it helps no one, especially you, to be hard on yourself. You have to, it's on some point, you just have to realize, okay, maybe I screwed up or whatever, and forgive yourself. Like, it's okay. There's a lesson here to be learned. Maybe this happened for a reason. This wasn't a mistake. I would have never learned this hadn't I just went through this, and then you have to be like, it's okay, man. Just talk to yourself. Like, I literally do this. I forgive myself for things that you don't even think.
You're not defined by your mistakes and things in the past. You get to that place where you realize, like you said, you forgive the past, whether it's something you've done or others done to you. And then you get to the present where you're like, okay, I'm going to live from the present, because I am not the past. I'm not what's happened to me or what I've done. I am really what we all are, is this, we're not the body even. So it's like, you get to that place.
Yeah.
Then it's like you just naturally let go of all that, because it doesn't matter. You learn the lessons from it, and it's actually blessings in disguise. And then you take the good and you leave the rest. And you let go.
If I can add, one of the most beautiful things of what I do is when somebody comes in for a session, they all are a little mystified of why things have gone a certain way in their life. They're really good people, and they try really hard, but this has happened or somebody's done that to them, and they just don't get it. And they're humans, we just all tend to do this kind of tunnel vision of victimization, and society supports it. So, it's right there.
Yep.
And if I could add, we're taught to support that. We're taught not to go into this part of ourselves that knows everything. We're taught to turn that off, actually, very purposefully, so that we are in a confused state that we rely on authority, right? So in my work, when people come in and we sit and talk for a while, a couple of hours usually, and it's a lot of I don't get it. And why did that have to happen? And, why my parents are like this, and why is my job like that, and my spouse, and nothing's right. And during the session, though, it all comes through from this very wide perspective, not tunnel vision. We're just so wide in the perspective that it makes sense. And many times, they'll find out they asked to have these experiences because of what their soul wanted to learn. It's not so personal, really. And that, the worst person in your life agreed to do that for you so that you could have that understanding, that knowing. And they're just an actor playing a role, and they're doing a really good job, so it depends on how long you want to stay locked into the victimization of it. But the beautiful part I see is as they come out of the hypnosis, and they're somewhat aware throughout, so they're picking up on some of this. It's like this look of awe, and oh my gosh, I get it, and oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way before. And I think Mark is such a great example of this, because he knew a lot going in, but it's just unfolded so much more deeply for him on his journey. And that's we all carry that knowledge inside. It's a joy to assist people to find theirs.
Wow. Yeah. So this is
said.
Absolutely beautifully said. And this is a great metaphor I heard one time, was that you see a play, you go watch a play. At the end of the play, all the actors come out on stage, and then you applaud for them, including the villain. And sometimes the villain gets the loudest applause because without the villain, the hero's journey can never happen. And and so that without that antagonist in our life, what's driving us? So sometimes you have to be grateful for that person. As shitty as they've made things for you, it was all orchestrated, I guess you could say.
Well, and if I could just add to that metaphor, at the end, all the cast members put their arms around each other and bow. They all, they're all loving being in that group together. Right. Yeah. And so often in sessions, they'll say that, as they get back up to, the other side or in between the lifetimes, wow, they did a really good job being, the biggest jerk, and I just love them. They were that was so kind of them to take on that really difficult role to let my soul learn that lesson, because I hadn't learned that before. It's just, my job has taught me to really judge nothing, because we really don't know the whole story behind anything. But the fun part is getting behind the realities to see, what's going on and all the possibilities and probabilities.
Yeah. And that's great advice. Yeah. Not judging anything or anyone, because you never know what that person's going through at home. And, we're not taught how to handle these emotions. So a lot of times people, they project that on the other people without even realizing it sometimes. And when we get triggered by that, and there's a constant cycle of this happening every day, everywhere you go. So if you can be grounded enough and heart-centered enough to walk around and not be affected by that and understand what this person might be going through and understand it, especially now, like these times suck for a lot of people, and everyone's going through some sort of turmoil or something. So we just have to be really understanding. And just because we evolved to a certain point, we can't forget about the people who haven't got there yet. And everybody's at their own stage of development, their own stage of awakening. And we can't forget that. And I think that's a key aspect to remember. Yeah.
Understanding is, you said the key word right there. It's all about understanding, because when you understand the root cause of why people act the way they do, where it's coming from, you have compassion now for them because you understand. Yeah. You're able to see it for what it is rather than just reacting negatively to the surface level. And it's almost like as we raise our consciousness, the understanding increases and the wisdom increases, and then you're able to deal with things from a much more wise and mature place, because you understand and you embody that all that knowledge and wisdom, and that's how we'll heal, and that's how we'll start to unify by understanding, rather than just this kind of unconscious reacting, which we see in society. It's like, they're the bad guy, attack them. We're the good guy. This like whole us versus them. And that's why the way the structures of society work is to keep us in that low state, unconscious, just reacting to everything. And then they can manipulate us, so easily, because we don't even, we're just reacting. We're in this unconscious react mode all the time. And we don't understand why things are really happening and why people are the way they are, and why it's like, you got to raise your consciousness to get to that level.
100% unconscious reacting. Yeah. And that's what, you don't want to, because somebody could come at you. This is road rage is a great example of this. Like, I think road rage is a daily test. How are you going to respond to a person cutting you off or doing something? Are you going to constantly just get pissed off about it and scream out your window and flip them off or whatever it is? Or are you going to just step, because in 5 minutes, it's not going to matter. In 5 years, it's completely irrelevant, So
you're consciously choosing your actions rather than just unconscious reacting.
Right. Yeah. You can let.
I'm going to bless them instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're maybe bringing that experience to you.
Exactly.
You don't realize that you're creating it.
Yeah. You're creating it for a reason.
100%. Absolutely. Like sometimes I wonder, like, okay, you're having a bad day, and then like everything, like all like this car pulls out in front of you, another car cuts you off, whatever happens. And you have to think, okay, am I creating this because of the energy I'm choosing to be in today? And, and how you respond to that person, it's up to you. And it can change. It literally can change the course of your day and your life if you can just learn how to navigate that and not allow that to trigger you, and respond maturely and not emotionally. Anyway.
Exactly.
So
good life lesson there.
So 20 and back.
I like the direction this conversation takes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Right. Exactly. Well, I was going to change the subject. Now you got me worried about it. Man. Yeah. Now, I do want to change the subject because Mark mentioned something before we got on camera that was really intriguing to me as far as, and we actually happened to touch on this with Penny Bradley on our last episode about, so it's not just a 20 and back. There's other programs where it goes longer, and, you know, having all these different alters, and nothing, a lot of this stuff just doesn't make sense. It gets confusing because we hear about this 20 and back, but then like Mark has an altar apparently that's been in for 40 years. And it's, so there's potentially two different programs going on. And what Mark seems to think is the 20 and back is like less than 50% of what's going on. And I would like to get your thoughts on, or your opinion on what else you think is happening.
I think it's the majority of it is altars. It's different programs with different altars. Many of the people that I've met have several altars. And I know some people where our altars are currently working together in a group right now. So, and that's where the majority of the stuff is going on, not the meetings with ETs and all the other stuff, but the actual battles and nasty stuff that's going on. Seems to be with people's altars, and there's no limitation from what I can see. So this is what I figured out as far as my whole chain of, like, it's more of a flow chart than a timeline. But when they made Hans, I always knew, and it was on the recording, that Hans was in, I was in Diego Garcia, and they transferred my mind to another body on Mars. And that's where I went through that electric shock. Well, that other body that was on Mars is one of my altars. So when they got done with making Hans, that altar's been used for about 41 years.
Right. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And he looks like me. So this is the difference, I would say, is he looks like me. He's a bigger, buffed up version. From him, though, they take it from him and they've made another altar, and they put it in different bodies. I have one altar that is a reptilian. So they can keep taking your light and putting it in different bodies. That's why I'm calling it an altar. It's not an actual clone. And what I do know is every time they do that, your light gets less and less. So they have a smaller version of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting to note, this is important. The reason I wanted to bring this up and is because if you're having memories, a lot of people immediately think, okay, this is a 20 and back. This is the only option. This is all that it could be. I served in some sort of a 20 and back. Right. But there's other programs out there. Like Penny Bradley said, like the Germans don't use the 20 and back tech. They use a different, they kind of like throw you in they like regenerate you every week.
That's it.
And they just keep, and then they keep doing this until you basically quit taking orders. And then until you're of no use to them. And then that's whenever it's still like the 20 and back, then you're brought back to your point of origin, but it can last a lot longer than 20 years. There's just different versions of it. And I just wanted to reiterate that because it might help people understand who are going through something right now, that they're, if it just doesn't fit, because 20 and back it's a narrative that some people are trying to fit their story into. And we have to realize that there's so many other possibilities out there. And there's so many programs, experimental programs. It doesn't even mean you were in a space program. Who knows what this is being used for. So I just felt like that was important to touch on.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it doesn't seem like there's any limitation, just like you said. Mm-hmm. The one altar I know, in fact, there's two of them, they would get it back in their regen, like a pod. Mm-hmm. After a mission, they get back in the regen pod. And the one, he's always about 30, early 30s. And it just puts him back to that age, heals him, and then he stays there until he does another mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Suzanne. So how many altars do you have?
I think my husband would say a few, a grumpy one, a nice one. I don't know. I've never felt like that's part of my journey, but my wonderments have been about parallel experiences and simultaneous, somewhat similar, somewhat different, simultaneous lives, timelines that sometimes collide, things like that. I mean, there's so much to grasp on this topic.
I'm getting chills right now. I feel like you're onto something there. Like this is also, there's another whole layer to this, to parallel lifetime that isn't an alter, but it's another version of you. There's an astral, we're doing things in the astral every night that we have bleed through sometimes and we remember. There's a lot going on here. What's happening in the dimensions right next to us, the dimensions surrounding us? Is there an alternate version of us in another dimension? And do we have memories of that? Like, I think as we get into this or get closer towards disclosure and go through this awakening, it's going to start, more layers like this are going to start becoming, we're going to start unpacking more and more and start realizing this is so much grander than we ever once thought possible.
Well, if I could just add, if we can throw into that batch a simulation, right? We're not really here. And it's all a simulation. But, here's another possibility. Maybe they're all true. They're all happening all at once. And everybody's reality is true. It's just different, mine different from yours, perhaps. I feel pretty comfortable with that concept. I think that makes, if a soul is meant to experience everything, then we have to go through a lot of different lifetimes and places and connections in order to do that. And can you imagine looking at Mark's whole soul history and seeing the story unfold? And, I think all of us, to a degree have something like that. It's more than probably our brains can comprehend for sure. But that's what I love. Sometimes when I'm in a session, I'll ask some very out there question to the high self. And one says, "Oh, you won't understand it." And I said, "I know, but I would like to try. So just give it to me, and I'll keep listening to this over and over and try." And I remember her going, "Okay." And just so she started giving me this information, and I felt like a cartoon character with my eyes like going in opposite circles, like I'm like, okay, stop, I can't take anymore. But I think that's where we're at, though, which is a beautiful place in humanity where our minds are open to questioning our reality and what's our media is so awesome at lying. So we're all kind of going, what? I don't know. But think back, when I was young and when, my mom and dad were young, you didn't question any of it. I mean, it just made no sense to question it, and now we know in these days, shady stuff was going on way before that. Right. So it's, we're in a time of grace where we get to see this unfoldment happen. And, it is the golden ticket. It's messy and it's uncomfortable and, nobody's going to align real easily, but it's okay. We're all discovering who we really are.
Right. And how many times have we all ask ourselves, like, why did I sign up for this? I'm just like, I'll be talking to my guides and I'm like, I don't care if I stop evolving. I'm never going to another planet with amnesia again. Like, not happening. Yeah. Screw it. Like,
I've been driving in my car going, what in the heck was I thinking? Why? This place is nuts. Yeah. And I always just get right back in. You chose it. You asked to be here. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll do the work.
Right. I'm going to have a talk with those people who talk
from a higher perspective.
Right.
We see the value of the hard time from this perspective. Because we from the small 3D self, we tend to view anything that causes pain is bad. It's bad, and I want to avoid it. We're always trying to avoid pain or suffering and anything we perceive as negative. But from a higher perspective, those things are very valuable, and that's how we grow, and that's how we experience and learn all these and grow. It's all about growth and expansion ultimately. So it's like, it's actually the opposite. It's a very positive experience from a higher perspective. We just view things as negative from our limited 3D self.
And Earth is a very special place in that we get the highest of highs and the lowest of lows and all the emotions that fall in between that. And in most places, they don't have that range. And so that's one of the gifts, which we think, oh God, it's so awful to have a hard, sad emotion or horror or whatever. I wish we wouldn't have to experience that. But man, we learn as a soul a lot through that experience. And, we take away a lot from a lifetime of 3D life.
Yeah,
exactly.
And not everything is to help us grow. Like paying taxes, there's no good part about that. Like,
that's to help you realize that you're not supposed to be doing things like that. That's a trick.
Like
as long as you don't stay stuck because you can stay stuck and keep repeating the same lessons until you're able to move past them. Like,
yeah, exactly. Don't stay stuck.
Paying taxes and all this.
Yeah, like I get the tax, but I'm like, get that shit out of here. Like that is the biggest illusion to me possible. Like it's not like I just can't. I think government's constantly taking away your freedoms and thinking it's for your safety and your benefit, and you're just stuck in that cycle. Until you wake up out of it, and then you see it for what it is, and then you're able to. Right. I mean, that's the way.
So that's the only thing it's good for, is to wake up out of it and see it for what it is, and say, I don't want that, and make a different choice, rather than you're stuck in it.
Exactly. And that's the challenge. That's the test, because we can tell ourselves that and realize that all day long until you walk out the front door and you get your head stomped on by every aspect of society, and so like you just mandates and lockdowns and this and that. You can't do this, you can't do that, whatever. So then that's where the test is. Like, how are you gonna stand strong through this, and how are you gonna handle yourself? And I still have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying,
I think one of the great gifts of these last few years is that we've all learned to feel our way through what's going on, more in a heart-centered way than a head-centered way, because that's always going to be fear. And it's being thrown at us as fast as we can take it in. But I think, it's a lot in our communities, have learned to step back and not fall into fear really fast and look at things in a broader perspective, which maybe we weren't doing before, 2020 so well.
Oh, yeah.
We thought we were, but we didn't have the test yet, and I think, wow, we have all, evolved so quickly through this. And it's been, the other cool thing too, is you get to see where people are at. I mean, it's not hidden anymore. You get to see, where your neighbors are in their heads with what they believe. You get to see where our leaders are at so clearly, and you get to see the people that want to put their head in the sand, I'm like, oh, okay, you're not ready yet. That's okay.
It's a great point. It is right now. You can see where everyone's at for the first time ever. The mask is a big indicator. They finally have, all of a sudden with this war, all of a sudden, everything's over with COVID, with this war, in quote unquote war. The signs are like all the stores around here. There's no more mask signs. They've taken them down. The employees finally don't have to wear them. And yet 90% of the people or more are still wearing masks willingly, and you can, it's a perfect gauge to see where certain people are.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I have to share this story. It was one of the most beautiful things. I was in the grocery store checking out, and there was one lady in front of me, and the cashier was wearing her mask. And the manager came up to her and said something into her ear. She ripped off her mask and threw it in the trash can. and she had to, like, I could literally see this dark energy just float away from her. And she just was in this amazing energy all of a sudden. And I said, what was that about? And she says, we just got approval to take our mask off. And she goes, I can finally breathe again. And you could hear the relief in her voice. I got chills. It's really hard to put into words, but being there and watching her shift energetically. And she was, all of a sudden, you can just see her energy, her attitude change. And it was a beautiful thing. I'm so glad I got to witness it, but it was also sad because, like, God, people just don't realize how much they're being suppressed and muzzled and all that stuff. And what that mask is, how that mask is actually hurting them. And it just, like, she was so chipper after that. She's like, oh my gosh. She goes, I could not stand wearing that thing. I was like, have a good day. She's like, I will now, and
yeah.
So
it shows you how so many people, their actions are based on what authority tells them and what they have to do. They think they have no choice. And like, so what they really want is to not wear the mask, but they're wearing it because they think they have to, or there'll be negative consequences. So it's all fear-based control. And that just tells you everything right there. So it's like, if we all stopped living out of fear and doing things because we think we have no choice because of some authority is going to punish us if we don't. It's, it shows it's, and if it was about health, it should be, we should all have the full proof of the science of, okay, this is proven that it's actually helping protect us. Or
instead we have the exact opposite.
Instead, ever since the beginning, all we've had is the exact opposite of that. And then the authority's trying to cover it up and steamroll us into doing it instead.
Right.
Then, oh yeah, okay.
But one of the other great gifts is, through these last couple of years, a lot of us have gone down different rabbit holes and, found topics and really studied them, researched them that we hadn't had time to do before, or things, the hamster wheel was running smooth enough that we weren't really questioning anything, so, I mean, how many people have, for the first time thought about secret space programs, that hadn't before all of this happened. Or
another great point is have the time to heal and actually focus on things that you weren't, like, you were too consumed. Like, let's say you were consumed by your job, by going to work, but now you don't have to go. You can work from home. You have time. Like, Mark, I'm sure this period has been a blessing in disguise for you on some level because of, you've been able to work on this healing process and actually integrate everything instead of being distracted. What does that look like for you?
It has. It's actually, I was a hermit for 2 years before that. So the only difference is everybody was locked up and me. We were all in the house.
Right.
So I didn't feel so weird, but I hadn't gone out. I think in 2017, 18, 19, I never went out. I was going through stuff. So I thought what's been really good about this is the research I think a lot of people have done. Lots of YouTube, they've come up with stuff. I think people also they've gotten away from distractions, so now they can use their own discernment. And they've built up their own discernment skills, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which has been really good.
Right. And there's a lot, there's a lot surfacing right now. A lot of things we never thought we would be talking about. Just for example, like talking about different types of 20 and back tech and different types of regeneration tech. And, a few years ago, you had to convince us that there was even such thing as a 20 and back or a secret space program. And now we're having discussions on this certain details about how the tech is used and this and that. Like, we've come such a long way. First, it's amazing to me, because there's an entire 90% of the population that still has no idea what we're talking about. Like, this interview would never find them. You know what I mean? And it's amazing to me to see the shift and the change and the discussions we've been having. At first it went from trying to get people to believe that this stuff actually exists. Now, okay, it's becoming very apparent this is real. Now we can focus on these other details that had no place before because we weren't really there consciously yet. I guess we've evolved in a sense. And I think it's pretty interesting.
too, maybe one of the great benefits is that as more things get revealed, those that have looked and researched and been curious about things that they had never been curious about before will have an easier time as some of this really bad stuff starts to be known. I don't know. I feel so sorry for those that can't do anything but accept a narrative right now, because we're going to have to be there for all of them, because it's going to be, their circuits are going to be fried,
Right.
hearing what's to come. And so I think maybe that's part of the journey too, for those that decided to do rabbit holes and question things, to, get them prepared for, what may be coming.
So according to your sessions, what may be coming?
Wow. A lot.
The big, yeah.
A lot. And again, well, gosh, a lot. I'm thinking back to a recent session that I gave to a nurse, wonderful, wonderful human being. She's has been in the trenches all along. And, she told me after the session that, one of her favorite phrases was follow the science, wear a mask, right? And in her session, somehow her high self and I just got onto this conversation. I don't even remember what I asked, but we started talking about COVID, and her high self says, yeah, it's all a ruse.
Nice.
And she said a little bit more after that. And I'm like, can we go back? Because I knew this would be important for her. I think she would want to have as much information as possible, even if it wasn't what she thought it was going to be. And I said, can you just explain more about what you said about it's a ruse? And she says, yeah. She goes, this was just all to create fear and to see who would be following, who would kowtow to the rules.
More control.
They were testing you guys all out. And she got into some more. Oh, she said, I asked, are there any leaders that are good? And she goes, well, I'm looking here. No, there's no good leaders. I'm like, oh gosh, you hope there's a few of them out there.
That's because it's going to be us.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. But the amazing part for me was after the session, we always sit and talk for a while, and we might listen to a little portion here or there, go over what happened, what they remember, what they recall. And I said, there's some information on here that might be hard for you to take in. It's not what you have thought things are. And I just wanted to prepare her a little bit for that. And she goes, okay, what is it? And I said, well, I think it's better if you just listen to it on your own, in your private time. And she's like, nope, I want to know what it is. And I'm like, okay, so I played that portion back because I wanted her to hear it coming from her than from me. Mm-hmm. And as she heard that, for me to witness her was astounding, because you just see what, this is not what I've thought any of this is. I mean, you saw a red pill before your eyes, and
exactly
coming out of her own mouth. Yeah.
Oh, the light bulb.
Yeah. The light bulb. Yeah. It just gives me chills, and I mean, part of me was like, I am so sorry. Because, I actually said to her, I said, did this just shift your paradigm? And she said, yeah. And I said, it's okay. Just take it in small bits.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, when she left, I was like, wow, geez, Louise, she's not the same person that walked in, that walked out. And they never are. But, and that's where she goes, oh my gosh, she says, I just always have said, follow the science, wear a mask. She's a nurse in the hospital. And, I just, what an astounding way to wake up.
Well, that's how the system, what you realize is the system takes advantage of our naivete of believing the authorities and the institutions and the governments have our best interests at heart. Because that's what we're taught our whole lives. And we want to believe that's true. because otherwise we're living in a very terrible system, and that, which is the truth. But you want to believe they're telling the truth. You want to believe they have our best interests. They're giving you the real data and telling you the right things to do. And none of that is true. Is when you actually start doing your own research and going down these rabbit holes, you realize, oh my God, they're lying to us about everything, and none of it is for our best interest. It's all for more control for them, less freedom for us, more pain and suffering for us, more oppression for us, more control for, and it's just more and more of that constantly about and they create these problems, these false flags, and what David Icke calls problem reaction solution, where they're constantly creating these massive problems and then coming in as the solution and saying, oh, we'll save you from it. And then it's just to further their more control and further their agendas. And they just do that over and over and over. And we keep falling into the trap until it's like, finally, we're at a point in history where we're finally starting to wake up. Enough of us are to see what's happening, see the manipulation, because it's becoming so obvious. Like you were talking about before, like all the truth surfacing and everything's becoming so out in the open more than ever before now.
Exactly.
That we can actually see things for what they finally truly are and make our own choice rather than being manipulated. So,
right. Mark, I have a question. So what's interesting to me is, so Suzanne, you're talking to everyone's higher selves through the session. And Mark, you mentioned earlier about meditating and talking to your higher self. Like, that's actually something important I want to touch on, because I think that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to have one-on-one conversations with your higher self without having to go through someone else.
Right.
How did you get to that point? And what does that look like for you when you are receiving information?
The last session, I don't know if Suzanne remembers, but the last session, there was a point where she says, do you have any, talking to my high self, do you have any more messages for Mark? And the one was, now he knows when I'm giving him information, he knows what my energy feels like, as opposed to his guides. So when I'm talking to him, he'll know who I am. So since then, I know when it's my high self. I can tell that, you get to the point where you can tell your different guides. It's no different from your high self. The difference is the way you get the information. Mm-hmm. When you get information from your high self, it's just comes right into you. It's not relayed. It shows up as memories. It shows up right in your mind.
So whenever you're meditating, let's say, because this is actually something I'm trying to work on, and I bet you it's going to look different for everybody. Like, to me, it seems the method that's been working for me is actually like automatic writing. And that's like, for me, I would have to almost, if I wanted to talk to my higher self, I would almost have to physically write down the question and then just start writing just let it flow and just let the pen take over. And then you'd be amazed what comes out sometimes. Yeah. But you have to be in the right energy to do that. But in your case, it just seems to be, so you sit down in meditation and you just like, yo, what's up, bro? Like, do you start talking to him or what?
I'll get into a sphere.
Okay.
I'll put a sphere of light around myself, and I'll only invite my guides and my high self. So that's where I'll start my meditation. After I do a clearing then of any negative entities, then you can go right into it. And it's not like waiting for your guides. It's immediate. And you don't probably need to do the writing. It's the first thing that comes to you.
Right.
We usually bounce off. We'll let it bounce off right away. But that's your high self. It's as immediate as you thinking of the question. The answer's right there.
Right.
And you get to the point where you can detect it. It's like, you'll feel it. It's right. You. I mean, your high self is like, your God self. It's you. Mm-hmm. And the energy is very similar. So it's not like it's a different energy from a guide or something. It just runs right through you. And then I found the more communication you get, the more you accept it, the better your dialogues get, to where I can, do something that Sue would do during the session, which is have your high self scan your body. You can do that in meditation. Have your high self scan your body, and you can see the stuff that's going on. I've been doing it for implants.
That's interesting. So you can scan and actually see like an etheric implant or a physical implant even.
Well, I just learned this from a friend, and she told me how to do it. But yeah, you can just scan. You just trust into your high self, and it brought me right to the exact spots where there was stuff that had to be worked on.
Right.
You know, little implant I had in my solar plexus, and then I could see there was attachments to the reptilians with my first 3 chakras that I needed to work on.
Right. That's huge. And congratulations. Good for you for getting to that point, because it takes a lot of dedication. Obviously, you're dedicated for going back to Suzanne for 6 years. You know, you're really trying to unpack this. And, you know, good for you. Good for you, because it's something I'm working on. And I think the writing part for me, it's because my mind is so busy. Like sometimes I don't get like that, just bounces off for me. So I have to take the extra step to really focus. And by grabbing a pen and writing, it gets me to that place. That's why I say it probably looks different for everyone.
No, that's a good method. What it's doing is it's just letting your high self channel right through your, and there's no other interference. But I think with time, you won't need that.
Right. You know? Well, with time, we'll be talking, we'll be telepathic and, you know, everything else.
Yeah.
Which is another message I've gotten quite a few times over the past few years is like, start practicing telepathy, like find somebody you're connected with and really start. And it's just going to be like, you know, we all experience like, oh, I was just thinking about you and the phone rang. We all have it. But if you can actually hone in on that and try and work with somebody, it would probably become very beneficial and prove to be very beneficial in the coming years.
You know who's really good with that? Children.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you've got small children around you, they're the masters of all of this. These are the ones that are coming in with their memories, with their gifts, being aware of them, and they're here to help us out.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, if you ever need a reality check, just have a conversation with a 3-year-old or 5-year-old, you know? Well, it takes, you just forget about, like, it takes the seriousness out of everything. And you just realize like the importance of letting loose, and like the importance of remembering to stop and enjoy things and have fun, and remember what it's like to be happy. You know, that's something we all need to remember, because of what's going on, we're all so serious. We're on a mission. We want disclosure. We want to see, you know, we want to see things change now. You know, we're all so focused on that we forget to stop and
we're
just
not living in the present.
Right. Yeah. And
which is so huge. So important.
Live in the present and check out. You don't have to constantly be posting every day online to wake people up and do this. You don't have to do it all the time. Go take a weekend off. And this is advice I need to take myself also. Like I need a break right now too. But this conference, you know, we're in the middle of, there's a lot going on, but I have to stop more than ever now and really just forget about all of it. Check out that timeline for a day and go to the park or do whatever it is I need to do. Spend time with some kids, you know, play with the dogs, whatever it is. But it's important to remember. So what do you guys, I know I don't want you guys to give away too much about what you're going to be speaking about, but give us a sneak peek about what to expect from you guys at the conference.
You start.
Okay. We're going to, I'm just going to go through a brief timeline of my story. And then we're mainly going to be focusing on my 3 sessions with Suzanne and things I did right, things I did wrong, and just to give people help and how they can heal and get through these traumatic events. You know, some things I did totally wrong. So we're going to go over those and show, Suzanne can show you if I would have done it right, what would happen, because there's a lot of healing that you can get from your high self that I missed out on because I didn't listen to my recordings. So we're going to do that, and we're going to teach people how a lot of the negative entities are on traumatic victims like Max, and how to clear them, and the usual, all your thoughts aren't your own. So these were a lot of things that I didn't learn till the last year, so I struggled with.
Well, I think there's nothing more important than that actually right now. And I'm thank you. I really look forward to that, because, the crowd that's going to be showing up at this conference, like I'm just kind of assuming here, but I would bet that they're all experiencers, or they've all participated in some type of program, and that's what's drawing them there. And based on some of the emails and comments we've got, that seems to be the case. And so, that's going to help tremendously. And would you like to add anything to that, Suzanne?
I would just say on top of that, there's an empowerment aspect to this, and the healing part of this, and how it all unfolds, and, how not to power away to, if you have that concept of entities or whatever, to maintain your sovereign self. It's kind of the good news of the situation. And I think when we realize that we are really, truly more in control of our experiences than we've been taught, that empowerment is what buoys us up to move to the next level. And that's what we want to help and assist people to, to know themselves better, and to understand it and come out of fear, so that they can see things clearly and understand them better.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's going to be great. It's going to be a good talk. Can't wait. I can't wait for the whole thing. Yeah. It's going to be so much fun. Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us today. Just for the audience, where can people find you? Suzanne, you go ahead and start.
My website is SuzanneSpoonerQHHT.com. So that's probably where most people would locate me. I've got a few other websites, but that one will get you to all of them.
And Mark, do you have anything you'd like to offer as far as where people can find you, or are you just going to remain incognito?
I'm going to remain incognito.
Nice. Let's just say that's probably a smart thing to do. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys. This was an amazing conversation. We really enjoyed having you on. It was amazing. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing for, the whole movement. So thank you. And thank you all to our fans and our audience, everybody who's supporting us right now. We're looking forward to meeting all you guys who can make it to the conference. Tickets are still available, secretspaceconference.info, and hopefully we see you there. Until then, have a great evening, everybody, and we will see you next time.
He said, listen, give me 2 years. You'll never want to come back. The adventure of a lifetime, and nobody will know you're gone.
You get deployed at 17 and a half. And now I was deployed from the New York Athletic Club. And we got actually deployed right out of the locker room from, you get beamed up to the ship, and then the ship takes off and you're gone for 20 years.
It's a very hard pill to swallow, but that's exactly how I experienced it. I was taken at 10 years old. I was taken and I was worked through several black programs. I was privately owned in the beginning. I did six or 7 years on Earth.
That's when all the stuff for the programs began for me. Specifically, the tracking that they had been doing since I was a kid, it followed me all the way through the military. And at that point, when I got to Diego Garcia, that's where I was taken off planet.
It opened that floodgate for me. And then all of these recalls started coming in, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And the way I was describing it, she's like, I've never had this with a client, but you're describing a parallel life right now.
It's a combination of human and other species. I was able to remember the name on their uniform. It's USS Arcorp. That was putting me through some kind of recruitment tests from age 3 until 12. And 12 is when I was potentially, taken.
He said, with your scores, I guarantee you'll make commander and you'll make pilot. And I said, pilot of what? And he said, 4-kilometer long Starship. He told me what was going to happen. He says, you volunteer for the program, we'll put you in, you'll do 20 years, we'll send you back in time 20 years, age regress you 20 years, wipe your memory, and you'll just wake up in bed like nothing happened.
It's almost beyond words. It's beyond comprehension of how this could happen. Whoever's masterminding this, the Air Force, working with extraterrestrials, working with a lot of pretty wild technology, which I'll also get into, it's really beyond fathomable. It's beyond fathomable.